Welcome to Beyond the Jump Points for the week of May 9th, 2025. Beyond the Jump Points is where we dive into everything that's happened in the verse this week. So without further ado, let's jump in. As things really gear up to get released, more than likely early next week, this week was actually a very eventful week, at least compared to the previous weeks, that is. So it really starts out on Tuesday. Now on Tuesday, subscriber fair was released. Nothing really special. There's kind of a t-shirt, some plaques that are mostly relevant that I'm pretty sure no one will ever display. And then for the purchasable item, they actually reused something that they had previously released like several years ago, which is a little bit strange. I think this is the first time they've reused it, and it's only purchasable as part of a pack. So that was a little bit on the weird side to me. I do feel a little bit gypped. I mean, personally, I would suggest just go buy the other one because it's several dollars cheaper. So the ships this month are the two 600i variants. So you can kind of fly them and compare them. It's not the world's most useful ship, I find, with the lack of cargo that it really has. But hey, to each their own. Wednesdays where things really started to pick up with the roadmap roundup and the monthly report both being released on the same day. So in the roadmap roundup, they really go through a bunch of cards that had been committed into the different branches, and there's a whole bunch that were kind of retroactively put in for 4.1 and before, which is kind of nice for record keeping. 6 months from now, it's nice to know when things are added. So the main things of interest here are really the different mission types. So we've got the maintenance missions, the animal population control missions, the hunt the Polaris missions. All of those are added in as cards. There's also some new weapon and hairstyles. Again, I'll come back to that in another video. And then there's also a bunch of stuff, like I mentioned earlier, that was kind of retroactively added in for the previous releases as well. Now we move on to the monthly report. Now, the monthly report was actually quite long, so I suggest if you're interested, just go read it for the details, but just the Cole's notes and the things that I think people actually really care about. There was a lot of work that was spent on the upcoming content that's going to be released with 4.1.1 and beyond. They really did hint at another major release coming soon. Possibly the next one, in my guess. So just to talk about ships, which I know everybody really cares about. The work was completed on the Starlancer TAC. We actually had a Behind the Ships episode on that last week already. And then the other Invictus ships. Now, depending on the video, they were actually a little bit inconsistent. So in one video, they said that there were 3 ships coming for Invictus, and another, they said there were 4. I think we're only going to really have to wait and see. Now, we do know the name of the additional 3 ships that are being released. I'll come back to that in a moment. There's also progress that was made on the 4 unannounced vehicles. Now, we don't have a lot of detail on these, and they're in varying different stages, but there are at least 4 ships in the process of being developed that we don't know anything about. Now, the Consolidated Outland Pioneer actually continued through its pre-production and white boxing. The one thing that I did want to call out, because it did seem a little bit strange, is they did put in a line that says modular kits were solidified. I actually didn't realize that the Pioneer had modular kits. So this one was a little bit surprising to me, and I've never heard any mention of it being a modular ship. I always assumed that it actually just had everything that was promised and shown in September. But this actually leads me to believe that you might be able to outfit your Pioneer in different ways. It's a very strange one to me. I'm going to do some more digging into that. There's also some new paints that were worked on. I know there's a lot of them that are coming up with Invictus next week. You'll be able to see. The RSI Apollo continued through Greybox, so that is not a ship that we're going to see next week. And the Perseus is having its interior look redefined, or defined, I should say, not redefined. So it is actually still going through development, and again, we're probably not going to see that next week. Now, there was a bunch of work that was done on the economy as well, to try and help it be a bit more of a dynamic economy. And there's some things that are actually going through the testing phases, so I imagine that we'll start to see those in pretty soon. They're also in discussions on the next iterations of item recovery, and exactly how that's going to influence the prices in the economy and the exclusivity of some of the items, because you can technically duplicate them. Things that you may not actually be allowed to buy in game, you could actually duplicate a subscriber fare item, for instance. Now, there were several references up to an upcoming major release, and I'm not really sure what's going to be included in this release, but I am kind of interested to see what they're coming up with next. And then the other thing worth mentioning is we did get a new version of the Pledge Store that was released. Take it or leave it. I mean, it looks reasonably familiar. I think it's kind of all based on what the ships section used to look like, but they've kind of expanded that out into the other areas. Personally, I find it a little bit difficult to find things, but it is at least more consistent. It always used to be weird how you had two different views of the ships and they weren't linked, and that was all just really strange to me. Moving on to Thursday. Now on Thursday, the missions team actually appeared on Inside Star Citizen. Honestly, the spotlight was really stolen away from the missions team, and I feel kind of bad. Everybody was watching the video to look at the new ships that were as part of it. I don't know a lot of people that are actually paying attention to the missions team themselves. So, I mean, if any of you are actually watching this video, I think you do really good work. Sorry that the attention was stolen away. Everybody loves their ships, so, you know. So the ships that were spotlight in the video were the Anvil Asgard, Guardian MX, and the Greycat MTC. All of them receiving various different glimpses. So we do know some information, but let's wait until it actually comes out before we really speculate or look at a bunch of the leaks on what these ships do and what they really look like. And then, of course, there's also the Star Lancer TAC, which has already been shown off in the Behind the Ships episode. Now, just a little bit of highlight of the actual missions team and what they were saying. In 4.1.1, they're actually introducing 60 new missions. Now, a lot of these do fall into a few different categories, but it's nice to see some variant content that isn't just the main storyline, the secondary storyline, and it'll actually give us some stuff to kind of vary out and do, like hunting animals or going through the new ambush missions, those kind of things. I'm actually really excited about this release. Can't wait to really see it next week. Friday was another interesting day. It actually started out with a patch watch for 4.1.1 being released, just on Spectrum, as a Spectrum post. They talked about some of the larger things that really hadn't seen a lot of attention. For instance, the refinery changes and the mining changes that are coming as part of 4.1.1. Personally, this is probably one of the things I'm the most excited about, so it's funny no one has ever really mentioned it before. So with this, just in case you didn't know, the high-level note, so you can actually remove the mining bags from the mining ships, say the prospector, put them into the station elevator, refine them directly from the station elevator, and then take the refined goods and place them back into the station inventory. They don't have to go into a ship specifically. This would have been really nice when I was mining for ice. So a little bit too late, but I'm sure that there's probably a new storyline coming along that has to do with mining in the near future that I will absolutely appreciate this for. One of the other things that they talked about, and they went quite a bit into depth, is the component rebalance work that was done in 4.1.1. No more are we going to see roughly the same components between the military, competition, civilian, etc. Each of them is actually going to have their own purpose. Now, I do dive into this in great detail in my video where I break down the entire patch, so stay tuned for that in a day or so's time. Now, there's also, we talked about the Wakelo Emporium, how it was expanded. So when the release actually drops, make sure you go check that out. There's actually now an entire upper floor. There's also some really nice improvements to looting. They're actually promising that you're no longer going to lose your weapon if you accidentally click on a weapon on the ground and it just kind of disappears into a pile of garbage. So I'm really excited for this. It's been kind of a long time coming since they changed it in the first place, and I really can't wait to get my hands on it and start using that. And then finally, the Argo Raft changes. Now, the Argo Raft has received some significant refactoring to its cargo grid. It's actually up to 192 SCU, which I think puts it in a really nice spot and makes this a real realistic ship for people to actually fly around in. And I own one in game, and I do plan on actually using it a little bit more now that it's got some decent cargo to it. Now, unfortunately, this was accomplished by basically stripping the hooks that were in the back and replacing it with an upside down cargo grid. Although the practicality is there, I do actually miss the hooks. The hooks, I think, were kind of something that was unique to the raft that really made it special. Now, I know they couldn't make it work and it wasn't really practical and it just doesn't make sense in the modern game. But I am actually going to miss those hooks. Now on to Saturday. On Saturday, there was actually a surprise Star Citizen Live that was presented at a Bar Citizen in China called the Stealth China Bar. Now, this was with some pretty key people, and they went into a lot of detail on things like the upcoming ships, the upcoming gameplay features. There's a lot of interesting stuff there, so I do highly recommend that you watch a video by ItsJoJoTVs. I'll put a link in the description here. If you're really interested, go through that video. It really breaks down everything that they're talking about and does a wonderful job of it. Now, the kind of highlights to me, although there were a lot of them, but just to summarize it, they did explicitly say that the Pioneer will not be releasing this year, which means that it's probably going to be at least next year, probably next fall by the time we see it. Now, I didn't really expect it to come out this year, but it is still disappointing nonetheless. The other big announcement is that the Perseus will be flyable for IAE this year in the fall. That's really exciting news. I know a lot of people are really excited about seeing the Perseus. Now, I would expect them to actually get started on the Galaxy after this, so I'm hoping the next year is a really big year getting the Pioneer and the Galaxy. Both ships that are sitting in my hangar that I own and can't use. Now, briefly onto the PTU and the updates that have happened in the PTU this week. Really, the focus was on stabilizing the release. It's going to go out on Monday or Tuesday next week. They have Invictus. They don't have an option. They really have to get this release out. It's one of those that I'm really going to cross my fingers and hope that it actually works, though. So I will cover off everything that's in the next release in a dedicated video. There's not a lot to cover for the PTU this week. That's everything for Beyond the Jump Points for this week. Make sure that you subscribe to see my breakdown of the 4.1.1 release that'll be coming out on Monday. Thank you, and I'll see you in the verse.